Government presents budget for 2016 with relief for the consumers and encouraging the investors.
Cabinet names members to Cabinet Subcommittee to abolish executive presidency.
Minister of Mass Media says that the government is not prepared to impose restrictions on the media.
A very good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News here on MTV and Shakti TV, coming to you live and direct from the studios here in Colombo. With me tonight is Jitendri Gunasena. Good evening, Jitendri.
Good evening, Ramesh.
Well, it was a rather hectic day for us in the newsroom, and I guess it was so for Minister Ravi Karunanayake as well, who delivered one of the rather lengthier budget speeches in the recent few years.
Yes, we do have the details of the 2016 budget as well as more stories on the other side of this.
Well, the 2016 budget was presented to Parliament by Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake today.
This was incidentally the 69th budget presented in the country.
Now, this is also the first budget presented by the consensual government and is aimed at reaching long-term economic development.
Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake began the budget speech elaborating on the government's income status.
The Sri Lankan economy is stuck in a huge debt stock and a high deficit as well. However, I wish to reiterate that the debt and deficit mess that we inherited is not of our making, and we condone the situation in no uncertain terms. We need to take positive action to make an innovative difference and deliver results which are acceptable from not only an economic viewpoint but also from socio-political aspects. Servicing of debt uses up all the government revenue, which imposes heavy constraints on recurrent and capital expenditure. With an expanding debt profile, debt dynamics had shown some remarkable shifts. In the outstanding stock of foreign debt, the share of commercial loans had gained momentum during the recent years.
Presenting the budget for the year 2016, the Finance Minister elaborated on the plan to encourage micro, small and medium enterprises. The budget proposed to implement a credit guarantee scheme in the year 2016 with Rs 500 million to encourage the micro, small and medium enterprises involved in horticulture, floriculture, food industry, fruit and vegetable, inland fishing, beauty culture, ornamental fish and etc. In order to promote this initiative, it is proposed to reduce the applicable corporate income tax by 50% for venture capital firms for a period of 5 years, which will commence by April 1st, 2016. It has been proposed to provide the existing fertilizer subsidy scheme to small-scale paddy farmers and a cash grant of Rs 25,000 covering the production year. Yala and Maha will be provided to farmers for a maximum extent of 1 hectare. The budget proposes to remove the import duties pertaining to import of agriculture, machinery and equipment and a reduction of the tax on seeds and planting materials. The 2016 budget proposes to give a guaranteed price of Rs 50 per kilogram of kirisamba, Rs 41 for a kilogram of samba and 38 Rs per kilogram of nadu and other varieties. It also proposes to reduce the price of a 400-gram packet of locally manufactured milk powder, which is another main commodity, to Rs 295. The government plans to introduce a life insurance cover of Rs 1 million for the fishermen who meet with accidents when at sea and encourage the private sector to engage in fish canning. The government proposes to allocate Rs 1,500 million for a cluster village in order to develop the infrastructure facilities. The budget notes that taxing of gold is superfluous and proposes to adopt a scheme where 50 licenses will be issued, allowing import of gold free of all import duties. It proposes to introduce a national digital identity, and it is envisaged by end of 2018 all the government buildings be connected electronically, adding that this will enable the servicing of around 70% of the day-to-day transactions online. A number of relief has been provided for foreign direct investments. The budget proposes to remove the tax imposed on the leasing of land to foreigners and also proposes to grant a 50% tax reduction for a period of 5 years to any new company setting up facilities in such areas. The budget notes that the Agency for Development, which will replace the BOI, will ensure that applications for foreign investments are completed to commence business within 50 days. It has also been proposed in the budget for the establishment of a development agency instead of the investment board, and that the administration of all export processing zones be entrusted to the private sector. It has also been recommended that the loose oil market be opened and that facilities be made for competitors who wish to enter that market. The significance of this budget is the fact that the supergain tax, which was imposed by the interim budget presented earlier this year, has been removed in the budget presented this evening. The budget has also proposed for all underutilized state lands be provided for agricultural and investment projects. The budget has allocated a sum of 500 million rupees for the establishment of a land bank. It has also been proposed through the budget to provide 100,000 units of housing through private-public partnerships within a period of 5 years. A special housing project is to be initiated to provide middle-level government and private sector employees on state-owned lands in Colombo, Jaffna, Kandy, Mathura, Batticaloa, Puttalam and Kurunegala. The budget has also proposed that tax concessions be provided for building materials, steel, tiles and sanitary ware. It has been recommended that an allowance of 10,000 rupees be paid monthly to trainees in the building and construction industry. The budget has proposed a revision of import taxes on garments, shoes, electronics and electrical items and other accessories to encourage spending by the tourists and to evolve into a shopping paradise of the region. While it has been proposed to liberalize the foreign currency changing business subject to a license fees and guidelines issued by the central bank, a Colombo International Financial Centre is to be established. The proposal suggests that the Colombo International Financial Centre will be constructed in DR Vijayawardena Mawatha, adding that its operations will be ready to commence by the 1st of April 2016. Minister Ravi Karunanayake has also proposed in the budget that licensed banks should concentrate on their core banking activities and that such banks should cease in engaging in leasing businesses from the 1st of June 2016. It was also proposed that employees open bank accounts for the purpose of remitting their salaries. The budget has also proposed charges on valuation certificates of vehicles to obtain finance facilities. Thereby, the charges applicable for motorcycles and three-wheelers will be 2,500 rupees, while valuations on all other vehicles, including motor cars, will be rupees 15,000. Moreover, the budget has proposed to offer 15% interest rates to citizens above 55 years of age to be applicable to deposit up to 1.5 million rupees. The budget also proposed to introduce necessary legislations to extend the time period for making contract employees permanent to 1 year. While a sum of 90,000 million rupees has been allocated for education, several programs are to be formulated where all teachers will be able to undergo continuous teacher training as well as to improve infrastructure facilities in schools. Minister Ravi Karunanayake also proposed in the budget that money be allocated for the construction of a university named Mahapolo University in Malabe. The budget proposes to restructure and reposition Sri Lankan Airlines with professional management inclusive of local and foreign experts to be a regional airline, and Mihin Lanka will be positioned as a no-frills budget airline. It proposes to make a lump sum payment per person of rupees 250,000 to July strikers. The budget proposes to reduce the price of 11 selected essential commodities. The government proposes to reduce the special commodity levy of potatoes and onions by 25 rupees per kilogram. The budget proposes to reduce the price of a canned fish tin of 425 grams to 125 rupees and to limit the maximum retail price of sprats to 410 rupees per kilogram. The budget proposes to implement maximum retail price of 169 rupees per kilogram of dal in order to provide a reasonable price and completely remove the special commodity levy imposed on dal. It has been proposed to impose a maximum retail price of 1,100 rupees for a kilogram of khatta, which is the most consumer-demanded dried fish variety, and to impose a maximum retail price of 425 rupees for a dried fish kilo of salya. The budget proposes to impose a maximum retail price of rupees 169 for a kilo of chickpea in order to provide relief for the consumers. The budget proposes to reduce the price of a 12.5 kg gas cylinder by 150 rupees with immediate effect and to reduce the price of 1 litre of kerosene by 10 rupees in order to provide relief to the poor. The budget for 2016 proposes to restructure the present corporate income tax rate structure to a two-rate band system with a higher rate of 30% and a standard rate of 15%. In line with the government policy of creating a society free of tobacco, liquor and betting and gaming, the budget proposes to impose a surtax at the rate of 25% of income tax liability. The government proposes to increase the tax-free annual threshold of rupees 2.4 million and the PAYE tax over and above this limit to be charged at uniform 15%, and the taxable income will be inclusive of all the earnings by the employee with no exemptions. This method and rate will also be applied for individual income earners instead of the present progressive rate of up to 24%. Further, any income from secondary employment will also be taxed at the same rate without any exemptions. The budget proposes to abolish applying 2.5% withholding tax on deposits with the effect of 1st of January 2016.
Following the budget presentation, the parliamentarians were hosted to the traditional tea party.
Minister and parliamentarians expressed their views to the media following the presentation of the budget.
It's a very development-oriented budget which has also gone to the extent of providing more relief to the people.
This is a zero budget. That is all I can say.
They were made money for the several items, especially education and the plantation housing and several other university development. So this is a good budget, I think. After a long time, we are getting a good budget.
I cannot say anything on this because I need to read it further. There is basically nothing in it. The budget reading was too long. In the past, the budget was presented around 10 times. Only the world changes and they became mere fairy tales. We consider those as the shows rather than the development. Minister Ravi Karunanayake presented a balanced and reasonable budget. More weights in this is towards the private sector. Privatization means that state-owned enterprises will see the end.
What has been presented in the parliament, the budget that has been presented today, there's a conflict between these two. So we actually wonder what is going to actually be implemented, whether what the Prime Minister proposed or whether what has been proposed tonight.
I think it's a good budget. I think it's one that gives the meat to the skeleton that the Prime Minister articulated 2 weeks ago, his medium-term economic plan. So this is a structural change.
Look at who is present. The Prime Minister is absent. The Prime Minister is not present for the budget. What is this joke?
This particular budget is a common man's budget, a poor man's budget, a budget that was initiated and formulated to help and serve the 20-odd million people.
And I have a feeling that this will resolve many problems with regard to investments, employment and cost of living.
Clearly, there was a very development focus, a medium-term focus in this budget. Also, we are going to strengthen the good governance framework. Monies were separated to strengthen the independent commission against bribery and corruption.
We have taken measures to reduce the cost of living. We have taken measures to reach long-term economic development. Even before the budget reading is over, the ministers left one by one.
All our property, resources and wealth will be given away to the local and foreign capitalist class. It is being covered up by the reduction of the prices of some of the items which are essential food items, which will later on again be increased.
In short, this is a budget that will benefit the foreigners and not benefit the local people. This is the economic crisis that we will have to face in 2016.
Lots of possibilities, and it had lots of direction in terms of private sector investment. There have been lots of freedom.
On related note, several other important proposals were made to the 2016 budget. Here is a look at some of them.
The wholesale and retail trade will be excluded from the value-added tax system. The present single rate will be revised to 3 bands %, standard rate of 18% and 12.5% high rate for service sector, and the minimum threshold for the liability for VAT will be Rs 12 million per annum. The casino entrance fee imposed in the last budget will be removed, and the annual levy imposed on the business of gaming has been increased to 400 million rupees. The budget also proposes the introduction of a simple unit rate of excise duty for the vehicles on the basis of cubic centimeters. Excise duty for the vehicles which are run entirely on solar, hydrogen or helium has been reduced to 2.5%. When importing vehicles, the budget has proposes the introduction of a vehicle import fee to obtain a vehicle entitlement certificate for each vehicle. Thereby, a vehicle entitlement certificate fee of Rs 2,000 per motorcycle and three-wheeler, Rs 15,000 for a motor car and Rs 10,000 per vehicle for all other vehicles. While it has been proposed to revise revenue licenses fee for motor vehicles, a fee charged on the certificate of emission test will be enhanced to Rs 5,000. Owner of vehicles which have been assembled in the country have been given until the 31st of March 2016 to register their vehicles and could do so by paying a fee of Rs 750,000 for commercial vehicles and Rs 1 million for motor cars. The budget also proposes to abolish all vehicle permits granted under different schemes, including to parliamentarians, and ensures that all government officers will be financially compensated for the benefit foregone. The country stamp duty levied at 1.5% for purchasers using a credit card has been removed. Provisions in relation to mansion tax, which was introduced in the interim budget, will continue to be applicable except for condominium units. It was also proposed to increase the annual manufacturing license fee for a distillery to 150 million rupees. The budget proposed to collect a minimum excise duty per month from liquor manufacturers. It has been proposed to increase the international telecommunication operator levy from $9 to $12 per minute for incoming international calls. Levies on English teledramas, films and advertisements have been exempted.
Welcome back to the news. The names of the members appointed to the Cabinet Subcommittee regarding the abolition of the executive presidency, drafting a new constitution and amending the electoral system were also announced today.
The committee comprised of 11 members.
The subcommittee is chaired by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and also comprises of Ministers Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, D.M. Swaminathan and Nimal Siripala de Silva. In addition to this, Ministers Susil Premajayantha, Lakshman Kiriyalla, Malik Samar Vikrama, Rauf Hakim, Rishad Badiuddin, Padli Champika Ranavaka and Mano Ganeshan are also included in the subcommittee.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa arrived at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate into serious acts of fraud and corruption today.
The former president arrived at the commission to provide a statement regarding the non-payment for advertisements that were aired on the independent television network during the January presidential election.
Now they themselves have realized that they have committed a mistake according to their very own documentation. I believe that they will not be able to continue their task ahead by wasting our time like this. I believe that this is a crime. Lawyers explain this issue. This is a waste of time. They accepted that a vast change had taken place by looking at the audit reports and the reality of this. The computer data that was obtained and the internal audit is incorrect. It was accepted today by the internal auditors that the independent television network did not accept any payment for the campaigning activities of Mahinda Rajapaksa. Therefore, this had led to a state of confusion.
Gayantha Karunatilaka is the Minister of Mass Media, and he says that the government has no intention of imposing restrictions on the media. The minister made these remarks at an event in Colombo today.
The event was held this morning to award diploma certificates to trainees of the Sri Lanka Television Training Institute 2015. It is a known fact that the world is controlled by the media, which is why it is known as a fourth government. We have heard numerous incidents where restrictions were imposed on teledramas, cinemas and various other productions. We also saw instances where certain programs were disrupted while being telecast on TV. However, the current government is not prepared to do any of those things. Neither does it have any intentions of imposing boundaries and restrictions on the media, unlike the previous eras. The politicians must do politics. The artist must do what he is destined to do. I do not believe that politicians are needed to impose restrictions on the media.
The Meteorological Department says that another rainy spell is expected over the country during next few days. It adds that rains exceeding 100 millimeters could be experienced in certain areas. A number of areas were affected by inclement weather.
Around 70 families in the Meerabad area were evacuated to safe locations after the area experienced a downpour of over 100 millimeters. Our correspondent in the area stated that these people have taken shelter at their relatives' homes. A Kovil in the ULG estate in Poonagala fell victim to a landslide. The supply of electricity to 6 houses in the area has also been disrupted owing to lightning strikes. The Wildlife Office and the Navy checkpoint in the Eluwankolama area in Puttlam was temporarily shifted as a result of the floods that are experienced in the area. The old Puttlam-Mannar road via Eluwankolama still remains inundated. Our correspondent in the area stated that the public has been informed to use alternative roads when travelling.
On a lighter note, the concert of the Mahabodhi Shokanji Kindergarten, which is attached to the Mahabodhi Society of Sri Lanka, was held today.
The event took place at the hall of the Mahabodhi Society of Sri Lanka in Maliga, Kamda, and saw the kindergarten students showcase their talents. The event was held under the auspices of the chairman of the Mahabodhi Society of Sri Lanka, Venerable Banagala Upati Sathero, who is also the chief Sangha Nayaka of Japan. The world is shrinking. Therefore, our education system and the way we move must also change. Back then, we created a generation of children with language knowledge and to be good citizens. Today, we need to go beyond that. We need to create a King Asoka or a King Akbar from amongst our children. We need to create a society where all races and religions will live under one roof. The positive things need to be taken and people should live as one. That is why we need to teach the next generation from kindergarten level.
The Sri Lanka campaign to ban landmines, convening a media briefing, said that an area of 64 square kilometers in the north and east provinces are yet to be cleared of mines.
A media briefing was convened in Colombo today to elaborate on 3 publications on humanitarian disarmament. The 3 publications contain reasons as to why anti-personnel landmines and cluster weapons should be banned in the post-war period of Sri Lanka, and as to why the United Nations Charter on Rights of Disabled Persons in Sri Lanka should be enacted. Landmines from an area of 64 square kilometers in the north and east are yet to be removed. Last year we were able to demine just 4 square kilometers. Over the previous years we have been able to demine 11 square kilometers. We can imagine as to how many years it would take to demine the remaining areas and make Sri Lanka a country free of landmines. We demand the government to sign the Landmines Act as quickly as possible. Over the last 10 years, the Sri Lankan government has not signed a single disarmament charter. We urge the government to be the respondents to the charter regarding war arms. Speaking to News First, Army Media spokesperson Jana Javira said the aforementioned 64 square kilometers belongs to war-torn areas of Muhumale, Kilinochi and Mena. The Army Media spokesperson added that of the 2,064 square kilometers of land which existed when the demining process began in 2009, 2,000 square kilometers.
Before we wrap up tonight, the hotel company has confirmed that gunmen have attacked a Radisson hotel in Mali's capital Bamako and are holding 170 hostages, 140 guests and 30 staff. The hotel's head of security said at least 2 private security guards were injured in the attack. And on that note, we wrap up this edition of News First Primetime News. For the News First team, I'm Ramesh Bandara.
And I'm Jitendra Gunasena. Good night and take care.